Hello listeners, Jordan here. I just want to let you know that you can listen to Nighttime early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Include it with Prime.
You are listening to the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello listeners and welcome back to Nighttime. In this episode, we're going to dig back into the situation that's been playing out at the Walmart location on Mumford Road in Halifax since October 17th. In a prior episode, titled Tragedy at the Halifax Walmart, we followed along as Gursimran Kaur's workplace death grew from an innocuous question on an online community forum about a police presence to international news about a woman killed in a Walmart bakery oven. Since I've released that prior episode, a lot's happened in this story. There's been significant developments related to the investigation, developments related to the store itself, and well, the online discourse, it's spun itself into one of the darkest and most dystopian collection of comments I've ever come across. So we have a hell of a lot to get into tonight, but let me start by warning you. The conversation tonight is going to be a bit more uncomfortable than it was the last time we spoke about this case, as our focus is going to change. In the prior episode, I presented mainly a timeline of the events and the known facts that were available at that point. But now, over a month later, I think we know enough to really consider the big question we ended our prior episode with. In this episode, we're going to ask what happened at the Halifax Walmart. So let that be a warning, and let's get into it.
Candles flicker at this growing makeshift memorial outside the Walmart at the center of this unimaginable tragedy, where a 19-year-old employee was found dead Saturday inside a store bakery's oven.
It's a nightmare. I feel sorry for the family, the coworkers. It's very shocking. It's very sad.
She's been identified by members of the Sikh community here as Gursimran Kaur. She recently came to Canada with her mother from the UK.
I'm going to start here with a few updates on the story before we get too far into this. First of all, let's catch up on the fundraiser that aimed to support the family of Gursimran Kaur. In our prior episode, I told you about the online crowdfunding campaign that was launched. The fundraiser, which was found on the website GoFundMe, captured people's attention for a variety of reasons. Firstly, the campaign's description provided a startlingly worded account of Gursimran's death. To jog your memory a bit, in the weeks after the workplace death, the official sources were simply referring to the incident as a workplace death and declined to provide any additional details. The references to the oven's involvement was just a thing of hearsay. And then, when the GoFundMe campaign was launched, it described the 19-year-old Gursimran's mother becoming concerned after not seeing her daughter in the store for a period of time. It described Gursimran being unreachable by phone. And then it described someone noticing leakage escaping from a walk-in oven. And then, of course, it described Gursimran's charred remains being found in the oven by her mother. It was simply horrific. Now, aside from the crowdfunding campaign progressing the narrative around the case and forcing the hand of investigators to reveal more, it also provided significant fuel to a fringe group who we're going to hear a bit more about as we go. I'll refer to them simply as the honor-killing fetishists. That is a group of people who firmly and unreservedly believe that Gursimran Kaur's mother was responsible for her death. But we're going to come back to that. The GoFundMe campaign, which was organized by the Maritime Sikh Society, had a goal to raise enough money to support Gursimran's family, help her father and brother get to Canada from their home in India, and handle all the unimaginable tasks that come along with the tragic and unexpected death of a child living abroad. During the last episode, we heard how the fundraising campaign was trending to exceed its goal of $50,000. I can now tell you that the campaign has nearly quadrupled it. After exceeding the goal, the campaign was paused at just over $194,000 raised.
An online fundraiser for a woman found dead in a Walmart bakery oven in Nova Scotia has been paused after it raised close to $200,000 in donations. Now, the campaign has closed as the society says it has started distributing funds to the family. Halifax police say they have no new updates on the investigation.
Although Gursimran's family has yet to speak publicly, the Maritime Sikh Society has stated that emergency visas have been issued on compassionate grounds and that Gursimran's dad and brother were on their way to Canada to support her mother. So in that sense, the crowdfunding campaign was successful. But again, as we dig deeper into our talk, this crowdfunding campaign is going to come up again. But we'll save that for later. Next, let's discuss some updates related to the store itself. The incident, as we heard, occurred on October 17th, and now, over a month later, the store still remains closed. A major Walmart in the center of Atlantic Canada's largest city, closed now for over a month, and closed during one of the busiest times for retailers, the lead up to Christmas. I'm kind of surprised by that, but let's unpack it a little bit. First of all, the store has been voluntarily closed by Walmart. The Nova Scotia Labour Board did temporarily issue a stop work order, but the order was specific to the bakery and the oven itself. But for reasons we'll hear soon, the stop work order was lifted after just about 2 weeks. So again, since then, the closure has been completely voluntary. And to their credit, Walmart has been looking after the employees affected by the closure. An October 27th communication to store employees provides some insight on exactly what Walmart was doing. What follows is a short excerpt from that letter sent to all employees.
To all associates of store number 3636, this past week has been extremely difficult for all of us as we grieve the loss of one of our associates. The store remains closed to allow authorities to complete their investigation, and we are unsure when it will reopen. As you may know, the store has been undergoing renovations and construction was paused. However, we will be resuming the renovations during the closure. You will continue to be paid for your scheduled shifts, and we will work with you on return-to-work options that may include working at nearby stores or preparing our store for reopening.
Now, as I told you in the prior episode, at the time of Gursimran's death, this Walmart location was in the middle of a significant renovation, both on the inside and outside of the store. So if I were to speculate, the closure could serve a few purposes. It would allow the renovations to be expedited, as renovating while hosting customers is certainly less than ideal. The closure would be seen as compassionate to the associates who knew Gursimran. And of course, the closure would allow the store in question to be inaccessible during the media circus that followed the tragic event. But regardless of the reason for closing, one thing's for certain. When the store does reopen, the oven that Gursimran was found in will not be a part of the new Walmart.
Walmart says a large bakery oven will be removed from the Halifax store where an employee was found dead last month. The decision comes after the Nova Scotia government lifted a stop work order at the store. The body of 19-year-old Gursimran Kaur was found on October 19th. The company says it had already planned to remove the oven before the incident. The investigation into her death is continuing.
Now, what I just went through there was some of the less pressing updates. The GoFundMe's done, the store's still closed and will be for the foreseeable future, but we still have a few major updates to discuss, and I think they'll be best unpacked alongside the big question we're asking: what happened in the oven? So let's take a quick break here, and when we get back, we're going to consider the theory of an equipment malfunction or training failure alongside what we know about the Nova Scotia Labour Board's workplace death investigation. Welcome back. Now, before we continue, let me just be clear up front. The public has not yet been told what led to Gursimran's death. For reasons we'll consider as we move through this episode, neither the police nor the Labour Board investigators or Walmart themselves seem keen to talk much about what happened at all. We know for certain the end result of what happened. We heard that through the GoFundMe. 19-year-old Walmart employee Gursimran Kaur was found dead by her mother and some employees inside of the oven in an employees-only area of that Walmart. Now, I can't say it for certain, but I do have on good authority a slightly more detailed description of the scene. Gursimran's remains were said to have been found in a seated position, with her Walmart vest removed but also inside the oven near her body. Her eyeglasses and her phone were said to be laying on the floor just outside the oven. But what happened, how it could happen, who made it happen, those are all outstanding questions. But I think we can get pretty close to the bottom of it with what we know now. In the prior episode, I briefly considered 3 possibilities: an accident, a homicide, or an intentional act. Each explanation is a bit tricky and comes with its own baggage, but I'm going to do my best to talk through each one separately. And since the description of the scene I shared moments ago is still unconfirmed, I'm going to avoid basing any of my conclusions on it. I'm going to stick with the known and confirmed facts. So let's start here. The first possibility I'd like to consider is an accidental death. That could be anything from equipment failure to user error to a freak medical incident of some sort. In the prior episode, I did my best to come up with an example of an accidental death and presented a theoretical situation in which Gursimran was cleaning the oven, wiped the controls, and inadvertently triggered an oven function, ended up closing the door on herself and becoming trapped due to mechanical failure, perhaps of the oven's internal emergency door latch, and then meeting her horrific end, a freak accident. To illustrate how this could be possible, I did my best to describe the oven, its internal release, and the regular maintenance that it requires. I spent so much time on this as I felt firmly that a freak accident was going to be the most likely outcome. But with all that said, I've reconsidered this, and for good reason. Call me a hater, but when I learned of Gursimran's death, I immediately cast my suspicions towards Walmart, a company known for getting prices down and keeping them there with questionable methods. But so far it seems Walmart is and has been acting appropriately. Remember how I told you there was a stop work order placed on the bakery and the oven? Let's explore that a little bit. The Nova Scotia Department of Labor can order a work stoppage at a location or group of locations when it suspects there's a hazard to employees. When done, the work stoppage is in force until the department lifts it. This allows time for an investigation or repairs or whatever is necessary to allow the work to continue safely. In this case, the stop work order was issued just after Gursimran's body was found. About 10 days later, the stop work order was lifted after the Labor Board investigators determined that the store had been following the appropriate safety procedures. Additionally, it had been revealed that over the past 5 years alone, labor investigators conducted 9 inspections at the Walmart on Mumford Road with no enforcement actions or administrative penalties being issued. One other small thing I should mention, if it was the failure of the equipment, inadequate training, or failure of the store to conduct routine maintenance, one expect that the stop work order would likely be extended to other stores in the area, as one would assume they'd all have similar equipment, training, and maintenance procedures. And that didn't happen. All that said, given what we know about the Labor Board's handling of the Walmart bakery investigation, it's more difficult now to argue an opinion that Walmart, their training, or their equipment were responsible for Gursimran's death. In fact, it now seems that Walmart is going above and beyond by keeping the store closed, paying staff, and supporting Gursimran's family. If things are as they seem, and Walmart holds no blame, it surprises me that they've extended the closure for this length of time. It has to be financially significant. But from a public relations perspective, keeping the store closed probably makes financial sense. It allows them to display their compassion and support their associates, but it also delays the inevitable news coverage of the reopening to a time when less eyes are on this story. I can't help but think about the way many celebrities handle controversy. They either temporarily leave social media or turn off comments on their posts until the wave of negative attention passes. Could this be something similar? Maybe, perhaps even probably. But regardless of why Walmart has chosen to remain closed, it's hard to imagine a way an employee could end up dead in an oven that results in a workplace investigation revealing that the equipment is safe and that workplace safety protocols were followed. So all that said, this doesn't sound like your typical workplace accident death or some kind of freak accident. And that leaves us with 2 other possibilities: homicide or an intentional act. Let's tackle the homicide hypothesis next. This explanation involves someone other than Gursimran making this happen, either forcing her into the oven or rendering her incapacitated and putting her there. I should also note here that as someone who closely followed the online discussion surrounding this case, homicide is by far the leading theory among people talking online. Personally, I've never considered it to be a likely explanation. Killing someone in a busy store, even if it's in an employees-only area, would be incredibly risky. There's cameras everywhere, so even if the act itself wasn't caught on camera, the perpetrator's entrance and exit from the scene would likely be caught on video. Then, of course, there were eye and ear witnesses to consider. And then why take the unnecessary step of putting the victim in the oven? Now, I'm going to try to put my own prejudices about this theory aside, and I'm going to consider it all as much as possible. So bear with me here as I talk through it. If it were a homicide, it would most likely have taken place outside of the oven. I say this as I think a scenario in which the theoretical killer operates the controls of an oven while holding the door closed, trapping someone inside without causing a scene that attracts shoppers or other associates, seems improbable, highly improbable. So then, we consider that if the incident begins outside of the oven, why doesn't the killer flee rather than staying on the scene and risking detection while handling and moving a body? I guess you could say it was to conceal some evidence that was left on the body, but again, they're in a Walmart, monitored by security cameras, filled with associates and shoppers. It's not the kind of place where an evildoer would have the ability to safely cover their tracks and, clean up the scene. It'd make more sense just to flee, right? And of course, even by hiding or damaging the victim's remains, there'd still be physical evidence left behind to inform investigators that it was at least a homicide. And having it occur in a Walmart would likely provide a manageable group of suspects. So it would likely be an open and shut case if a homicide. And it seems that this was an open and shut case. I'm about to air portions of a Halifax police press conference that occurred on November 18th. In this presser, the police publicly closed their investigation and reveal their findings.
Good afternoon. On October 19th, police responded to a sudden death of a 19-year-old woman at Walmart on Mumford Road. The woman, who was an employee of the store, was located deceased in a large walk-in oven in the bakery department. We understand there have been many questions about what happened. Thorough investigations take time. As a part of the investigation, we conducted several interviews, reviewed video footage, and worked very closely with our partners at the Nova Scotia Department of Labour and the Medical Examiner Service. We thank everyone for their patience as we worked through these processes. Our job at the Halifax Regional Police is to investigate criminality. Today, I can share that our investigation has not led us to suspect foul play. We do not believe anyone else was involved in the circumstances surrounding the woman's death. The Department of Labour and the Medical Examiner Service are continuing their work, but we do not believe the death to be suspicious. We acknowledge the public's interest in this case and that there are questions that may never have answers. Please be mindful of the damage public speculation can cause. This woman's loved ones are grieving. We have met with the family. Our thoughts and hearts are with them. People will process loss in various ways. I urge all of you to check in with yourselves and consider accessing support if you need it. Out of respect for the family, we expect this to be our final update on this case. Thank you.
Now, despite the police deeming the death not suspicious and finding no evidence of foul play, I still want to spend a bit more time on the homicide explanation, as there's a whole lot more to it. If you spend as much time reading about this case as I do, you will find that there's a dedicated group of people who are convinced that Gursimran was murdered, and they seem happy to openly point a finger at the person they believe responsible, one of the people who found her in the oven, her grieving mother. I call these people the honor-killing fetishists. If you're unfamiliar with it, an honor killing is the murder of a family member, usually a woman or a girl, by relatives who believe that the victim brought shame to the family. This could be due to the victim violating cultural, religious, or societal norms, such as refusing an arranged marriage, seeking a divorce, or engaging in a romantic relationship that was disapproved by the family. Although honor killings do occur all over the world and in all cultures, they're more common in societies where strict gender roles and concepts of family honor are deeply rooted. As Gursimran is Indian and was found by her mother, I guess that's enough to compel some people to hop on Facebook and put their ignorance on full display. And then, if you add the $200,000 GoFundMe proceeds, you get even more speculation. Well, more than speculation. I've seen countless accusations that Gursimran was killed in an honor killing that had some kind of weird dual motive to bypass Canadian immigration processes and raise enough money to buy her family a house. These types of theories are as disturbing as they're widespread. Now, I hope it's clear and goes without saying, but these accusations appear to be rooted in ignorance much more than in any kind of analysis of the facts of the case. So in closing, let me say this. The Halifax police investigated, and they found no evidence of foul play. Now, I consider myself creative, but I can't imagine a situation in which a person is murdered and put in an oven in a Walmart without leaving any evidence of foul play. But that said, you can easily find comments left online by those honor-killing fetishists who suggest the Indian government paid off the Halifax police, and it's all a big cover-up. But I give every one of you listening enough credit to know that we don't need to go there. So at this point in the episode, we heard how the Labor Board found Walmart observed safety protocols, the oven was deemed to be safe, and the Halifax police found no evidence of foul play. So that leaves us with one final, very sensitive theory to consider. After a short break, we're going to discuss the possibility that Gursimran's death was an intentional act of self-harm. Welcome back. We're now ready to break down the final possible explanation for what happened in the Halifax Walmart's oven. Was it perhaps an intentional act of self-harm? And before we get into it, I want to give some background on this, as I think this will explain a lot. Suicide and self-harm is a topic you'll rarely see discussed publicly. The media avoids it, police avoid it, and government agencies avoid it. And they do so for good reason. Research has shown that the coverage of self-harm can encourage vulnerable individuals to take their own lives. It's a phenomenon known as the contagion effect or the Werther effect. This mechanism can cause multiple suicides to happen close together, such as in a school or in a community, or even on a larger scale when a celebrity takes their life. It's this reason that media coverage of suicide-related stories often features public service announcements that provide numbers for mental health supports directed to people considering self-harm. But ultimately, what you'll find is coverage of suicide is avoided. Typically, terms like sudden death or death not suspicious in nature are used instead. But the dark side of this is that in the absence of fact, online gremlins and conspiracy theorists aren't directly confronted with conflicting opinions or conflicting facts. Vague statements, lacking detail by law enforcement, can be used by bottom feeders as proof that there's more to the story. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't take police silence as evidence of a conspiracy or cover-up. There's probably just some things they don't want to say publicly, and again, for good reason. But let's get back to the question we've been asking. What happened at the Walmart? When I prepared the prior episode in this series, I did consider self-harm a possibility, but when I reviewed the oven's user manual, I couldn't understand a way someone could activate it from the inside. Additionally, I watched near countless videos made by people with knowledge of the oven who felt that it would be impossible to turn it on from the inside. You've probably come across some of these videos yourself, as I found a few that racked up views in the millions, despite every one I found leaving out some key details. One detail that's often missed, and I missed it in my prior episode itself, is that the oven in question has a timer. It's a function designed to allow timed operation. So, for example, a baker could load product into the oven, program in a specific task for the oven to carry out, and program a time for that task to start. I could see how that could be useful in the operation of an oven, but I see also how it comes into play in our discussion tonight. Let me just talk through this. When people consider the possibility that this incident was an act of self-harm, they're probably picturing a person choosing to end their life by walking into a hot oven. The timer function changes that possibility tremendously. Then consider again that it was leakage of a substance that alerted people to the oven to begin with, and then further consider that early but unverified witness reports suggests that there was blood found near the oven. Now, I don't want to be any more graphic here than I need to be, but I think if I chose to, it'd be pretty easy to come up with a theoretical situation that involves the loss of blood and the timed operation of the oven. Of course, it's very dark to even say that much, so I'm not going to go any further down that road. But what I will say is that with all the known facts considered, the most likely explanation here doesn't seem to involve a typical workplace accident or a homicide, and I think there's a pretty good reason that we, the public, aren't being told what happened. In fact, it's probably for the best. Now, with that said, I'm going to start winding down this episode. And I know it's been a dark one, but I think this story isn't done yet. What's left here, other than the official explanation that we may or may not ever receive, is the reopening of the store. At the time of writing this, it looks as though it's still a ways away. I drove past there just this morning, and at this point, the exterior signage has all been removed, and it appears new signage is going to be installed in the future. Additionally, it seems that the internal renovations are still in full swing. So expect any reopening plans are for at least mid to late December, if not early in the new year. But when it reopens, very curious to see how the public reacts. As with each day that passes, the horrific tragedy that led to its closure gets buried deeper and deeper below the news of the day. And I wonder if that too is for the best. I don't imagine there's anyone out there who wants this Walmart to be remembered for this death, and I don't imagine anyone wants Gursimran to be remembered for her horrific end. I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Nighttime. I understand that the 2 episodes covering this case were in a different format than what you're used to, but just like I said the last time we discussed this case, I wanted to get this off my chest, and I wanted to carefully choose my words. Now to end here, I want to send my condolences to everyone affected by this story. The unanswered questions that the public has, I hope have been answered at least to Gursimran's loved ones. I can't imagine what they're going through. Now with all this said, I'm going to wrap up this episode, but before I do, let me end with thanks. First, a big thanks to Monty, Datta, who contributed the music for this episode, and LJ from the Dystopian Simulation podcast, who provides my intro and outro voiceovers. And then lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. On the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed. Trish, Kristen, Shanda, and Steve, we appreciate you. If anyone else would like to support the show, you can do it in a variety of ways. First of all, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple dollars a month, and that money funds the creation of new episodes. But the premium feed will also give you those new episodes 2 days early, get them to you ad-free, and give you access to a full back catalog of episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium at nighttimepodcast.com/subscribe. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the show by sharing this episode on social media and letting all your like-minded friends know why they should listen. If anyone out there has any story ideas, want to give feedback on the episode, or would like to submit a question or comment to be responded to in an upcoming episode, you can do all that and more at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. I'm excited to hear from you. But until then, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let me know if you see anything weird.
The Nighttime Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Jordan Bonaparte.